in this point, the Alternative for Germany takes a complete leftist position, if you talk in those terms. Diplomacy over weapons deliveries and peace over war. And we're standing alone in the German parliament, in the German Bundestag. If we want to distinguish political parties, we should rather look at the degree to which they stand with simple people, the small enterprises, etc., or whether they stand for global capital, global interests, and also global governance tending towards global government. But if you want to maintain the nation state, then you are on the hit list of the globalists who own most of the Western media. J.D. Vance has already said, should you Europeans ban X from the EU, then we question NATO, because NATO was created to defend countries sharing similar values, and our basic value is democracy. And the fundament of democracy is free speech. So if you kill X, we will kill NATO.
Take the first step towards online privacy. Get NordVPN.
When tyranny becomes law, rebellion becomes a duty. So said Thomas Jefferson. Go to bit.ly/lawful tax protest or bit.ly/make-war-history and find out why it is a criminal offence to pay central government or local government taxes in the UK. bit.ly/lawful tax protest or bit.ly/make-war-history. And let's make war history. Hi, Rainer. Thank you so much for making yourself available.
My pleasure.
Yes, I'm really, really excited to speak to you because I've wanted this for a long time, and you've been connected to me via Harley Schlanger from the LaRouche organization, and you are a member of parliament for the AfD in Germany, and you're in the Bundestag, and there's elections on February 23rd, and we're going to be finding out about the AfD and about you and what you represent, and also have a conversation about how Trump's election is going to impact the European Union, Germany, and of course the AfD and whatever else, right? So thank you so much. For anybody who's watching, please subscribe, comment, like, and follow me and follow Rainer. I'll have all your links in the description below. Thank you. Rainer, do you want to start by saying just a little bit about yourself, and then we can go into the conversation?
Yeah, I'm a geographer by formation, and until 2015 I was a professor for political geography at the University of Tübingen, and I was specialized on conflict research, development studies, interreligious conflicts, also geopolitical analysis, transport geography, different fields. And since 2018, I'm a member of the Alternative for Germany. I joined the party coming from, I would say, rather a peace movement, which I had initiated on my own. I started in 2016 the Druzhba peace tours to Russia to counter the manipulative reports in Western media about Russia. I had the feeling that we were heading towards full-out war between the West and Russia, and I wanted to counter this development by just promoting diplomacy from below, made by the people for the people. And after leading 3 really huge peace tours to Russia with 270, 360 participants, we had another year, I recognized that what we achieved by our grassroots movement was always torn down, destroyed by the politicians afterwards. And so I decided to join politics and to fight for peace in the parliament. And here I am now in Deutscher Bundestag as a parliamentarian. I joined the Alternative for Germany because it was the only party which had the backbone to stand against this manipulative propaganda storm against Russia, and calling steadily in a very solid and constant way for normalizing relationships between Germany and Russia. And I still do this nowadays in my position as a parliamentarian, as a member of parliament. And I feel that we are now starting to have some positive impact. Even though we see the war in Ukraine going on, I can already recognize that, yes, people are waking up and we are about to reach a new era in European policies where this East-West division will be overcome.
Fabulous, fabulous. Rainer, thank you so much. I'm going to get more into AFD and what they stand for. And, there's going to be what you say and then what I hear in the mainstream media about AFD. But I just want to acknowledge that your stand for peace matches my own stand for peace. And here in the UK, and I'm going to just take a few minutes to let people know about this. There's a campaign, a groundswell campaign, and the website is bit.ly/makewarhistory, bit.ly/makewarhistory. And in the UK, and it's probably the case in Germany, although your legal framework is different, but the UK is a signatory to conventions against genocide and terrorism and has passed them into statute. And it's a criminal offense to give any money to any organization that is going to directly or indirectly fund or facilitate genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, or acts of terrorism. And it's not just international agreements that apply, domestic statutes, International Criminal Court Act 2001 and the Terrorism Act 2000. And these statutes also apply to central government and local government in the UK, and it also applies to the military activities of the UK government, even when approved by Parliament. So when I pay my taxes, my local tax or a parking fine or a central tax like my income tax or capital gains tax, some of that money is going to be used for killing people in Yemen, for supporting the killing of people in the Middle East, for supporting the killing of people in Eastern Europe. Well, I'm breaking the law. And then if you're the tax authority, Rainer, you're breaking the law by asking me for that money. So there's a very simple process, and it's been over a year now I've used this process, and the law's pretty watertight. I told HMRC and the tax authorities here, and not once have they threatened to take me to court because it's so clear and so clear. And people need to know about this so that we can have our money not spent for killing people or lining the pockets of Zelensky, but it can be used taking care of our own.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say that, Rainer. And any questions you want to ask or anything you want to say?
Well, I would say that's a very good point because we really have to demand from our governments that they fulfill their tasks properly. And since, I would say, World War II, we all agree in Europe that before weapons are taken into account as the last resort to solve a dispute, we have to engage in diplomacy. So there is this primacy of politics before military speaks.
Yes.
And this has not been obeyed, this golden rule of the peaceful Europe in the past years. We have created these tensions in Ukraine over decades, but at least in 2014. And we have looked the other way when thousands of people were killed in eastern Ukraine by the Ukrainian army because of the secession which had happened there. And we just stipulated that you cannot have diplomacy with Putin, with Russia. No way. He only understands the language of weapons. And this is nonsense. I mean, there was an attempt to resolve the tensions and the problem end of 2021 when Vladimir Putin presented to then President Joe Biden a draft treaty to solve the tensions in Ukraine. And it also included the solution and the guarantee that Ukraine would stay neutral and not join NATO. But Joe Biden was not interested in solving the dispute this way, and he just rejected this offer of withdrawal of all Russian troops for signing this treaty. And even Jens Stoltenberg, the then NATO Secretary General, said that the Russians wanted to solve the problem this way. They wanted to keep NATO further away from their borders. We didn't sign, he said, in the European Parliament in September last year. And he was proud that now NATO is on the borders closer to Russia than it had been before. So this shows that, yes, there were diplomatic offers. There would have been a time window where the West and Russia could have sit together and maintain dialogue over the possibilities of avoiding full-out war. And they didn't want it. There was a peace agreement almost fully negotiated in April 2022. And if I'm not mistaken, it was Boris Johnson who was sent to Kiev to convince Volodymyr Zelensky that he had enough support of the Western armies to fight this war and win that war against Russia. And so the Ukrainian people got deceived, and they lost many, many, many people. If we believe Trump, it's 700,000 Ukrainians who have died in that war already. So this is a huge issue, and we should not let our governments get away with that, because it's the blood on their hands. And this war was funded, as you said before, with our taxpayers' money. And people were made believe through the mainstream media propaganda that this was the only choice, the best and wisest option in Europe that we before deemed to be so peaceful. And this has to stop. And if there are no consequences for this really grave misbehavior of our Western governments, they will just go on like this. I mean, what was the consequence of all the mistakes and also the crimes? To be honest, they were rather crimes than mistakes during the COVID crisis.
That as well.
Nothing has happened so far. Nothing. And I'm still waiting. And I hope that Donald Trump will now get on board of the team trying to bring to light what has happened during that time. But if we let them go, no matter how many years this problem now is past, then we support a repetition in the future.
Yeah, and I would just add that it's not just we don't know how many Ukrainians and Russians died, because nobody's telling us. All there is propaganda and being misled. But it isn't just it isn't just the ones that have died. It's those that have been disabled. It's it's the cries of the mothers and the wives who've lost their fathers and their brothers, and then how Ukraine has lost its brightest and best because they've flooded into Poland and Germany and gone to other places, and then created greater demand for a fixed set of resources, and then you've had friction and poverty and resentment. It's just been a complete failure. And I'm not a war expert or a military expert, but I thought when this started, there's no way Russia's going to lose. There's just no way. So I'm thrilled to be talking to a politician who stands for peace, who stood for peace before they became a politician, is now part of a party that is standing for peace. But over here, what we're told about the AfD is that you're far right.
Well, this is the problem, that people are miseducated in thinking just in those categories of left and right, and left equals good and right equals bad. And this doesn't bring us anywhere. In this point, the Alternative for Germany takes a complete leftist position, if you talk in those terms. Diplomacy over weapons deliveries and peace over war. And we're standing alone in the German parliament, in the German Bundestag. And we are always called Putin's stooges and Putin's propagandists in this parliament. So that shows that we don't get any further with this categorization. We have to look much deeper to understand what Alternative for Germany stands for. I would say, if we want to distinguish political parties, we should rather look at the degree to which they stand with the simple people, the small enterprises, etc., or whether they stand for global capital, global interests, and also global governance tending towards global government. And this is what helps a lot better to distinguish between parties, because this is the main fight which is going on at the moment. I mean, Donald Trump, for example, stands against global governance and global government. He's presenting us a national development model,
Yes.
just as more or less Alternative for Germany does, just as, for example, Viktor Orban in Hungary does, just as also Vladimir Putin in Russia does. And that's why they are portrayed in the media as the dangerous enemy, which has to be fought
Yeah,
unforgivingly.
The corporate globalist owned, corporate owned media is going to attack those that are for independence, sovereignty, business, family, looking after our brothers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so this is the point. And this helps us a lot better to understand what is going on, because in geopolitics, we should not let ourselves be deceived by geographical patterns. So it's not the United States against Russia or the EU against Russia. It's globalist forces against those forces trying to preserve the nation state, be it in a rather liberal or not in English, it would be rather libertarian way, or be it organized in a rather authoritarian way. That is not the primary issue here. But if you want to maintain the nation state, then you are on the hit list of the globalists who own most of the Western media. And that's why we find ourselves nowadays in the same camp as the demonized Putin in Russia, as the demonized Orban in Hungary, as the demonized Trump, and also the United States. Now the European Union promotes, just as 2016, to get closer, to come closer together, to form a stronger European Union, to form even a centralized government, a state-like structure, and to form a joint army for the European Union. And they forget all of a sudden about all their relationships with the United States, because one of their ideological enemies has taken over control in Washington again. So it's not geographical front lines, it's ideological front lines.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so if they are anti-war, pro-Germany, what is it? But I saw something yesterday. Schultz at Davos, the Globalist Forum, was talking about how, in order to preserve democracy, they have to deny you access to democracy, because there's moves afoot, I understand, to deny you a place in the election or something. Say a little bit about that. What's the argument? And from my understanding, it's actually not going to be possible, because the German constitution and the constitutional court, it's going to take too long. And it's really, really clear that you're not the party going to be banned.
I mean, this initiative will be presented next week in parliamentary session in Berlin. And it's an initiative of over 100 different members of parliament from different party factions. So it's not the parties themselves that have decided to support this motion to forbid.
Just very quickly, Rainer, 1 second. Those 100-odd members of parliament who are putting that forward, are they the ones who are most likely to lose their seats to AfD?
Yeah, that's what I say, because, I mean, maybe half of the spectators, of the voters, of those who accompany this process, this parliamentary motion, will believe them. Yes, the AfD is very dangerous for democracy. We have to forbid them. But the other half would say, come on, that's incredible. I mean, I don't like everything AfD says, but their criticism is damn right. The government is doing a not only lousy, but a terrible job. It's destroying our industry, our wealth. We had this terror attack on the Magdeburg Christmas market just before Christmas. And today we had another attack of an Afghan refugee against a kindergarten group in Aschaffenburg. One little boy, 2 years old, and a 42-year-old man was killed. So people say, we need the alternative for Germany because we have the feeling that the other parties all play in the same camp and just do a theater play there, resembling democracy. But the AfD is really opposition. So we need opposition. And that, I think, will lead many people to voting for us. But, well, that's their last resort. They try to make the level playing field. They want to tilt it against us. And they have been doing so in many, many ways in the past years. For example, every faction has the right to have a deputy speaker of parliament. But we have been denied this deputy president, we call this person, this function. We have been denied that position since 7 years. We have been denied funding for our political foundation. In Germany, we have the system that each party represented for the second legislative period in parliament is being granted subsidies to maintain a political foundation, and that political foundation engages in research, in education, etc., in training. It does studies that support the political orientation of the respective party, being totally independent from the party. But we have been denied this funding, and we are speaking about 659 million euros per year for all those political foundations. Our foundation should receive around about 65 million per year. We have been denied it. Now we have the double of the survey results compared to the election results 3 years ago, around 20%. So we should be entitled to get 130 million euros per year. We get zero, nothing. And now they even resort to that instrument of trying to forbid us, which will, of course, send out a signal to many people who watch the AfD closely but are a little afraid that AfD could possibly constitute a danger to democracy, etc. And they, of course, will be scared away from voting for Alternative for Germany. So this is outright manipulation of the election, because we are in plain campaigning time at the moment. And another instrument, maybe even more powerful, is that they will just not invite us to the regular talk shows that millions of Germans attend in the evenings to inform themselves about ongoing political debates.
So local hustings.
Yeah.
That happens in the UK, where local candidates will get together and people come and ask questions.
Not the local castings, but the talk shows in TV, in national TV.
Okay.
So the really major TV shows. There we are heavily underrepresented. I would say 1 to 20 compared to our election results. This is also outright manipulation of the democratic system, because in these media talk shows, the opinion of the population is formed, and we have no comparable chance to present our positions, to present our arguments. And so I must admit that Germany is not really a liberal democracy. It's I would rather say semi-authoritarian democracy, because we are denied undisputable rights as the second biggest party in the country.
Yes. There's similar processes happening in the UK and I think the European Union as well. All the countries that have installed WEF sponsored governments, I think it's the case. Now, there was an interview between Elon Musk and Alice Weidel. Am I saying her name correctly?
Yeah, correct.
Which I listened to, and apart from the bit about space and everything, I didn't find that particularly interesting. I'm interested in the politics of it. But it was just two people talking, and she sounded incredibly reasonable. Now, I would say as a criticism and this isn't bad, right? But of course, she and you in this call are going to present yourself as reasonable, but any politician would, because I present myself as reasonable because I want people to come back and listen to my channel, right? But it wasn't anything particularly noxious or obnoxious in what you said. It was just two people having a conversation, two normal people having a conversation. Now, what's the impact of that been in Germany?
Well, the most important impact is that this strategy of keeping us in isolation from public discourse was disrupted through that X space. And for sure, Elon Musk has done that deliberately because he knew that the German government was not only fighting Donald Trump in the election campaign in a very, very ugly manner. Just to give an example, our president, Steinmeier, he called Donald Trump in the election of 2020 a hate speaker.
Yes.
So that's not really, a fair way of addressing a president. He was running for the second term. And that, of course, brought the government system of Germany, the media system of Germany, on the screen of Elon Musk, of Donald Trump, and they knew, okay, we are being fought by these people, by these media outlets, and they also fight the Alternative for Germany, a party that has almost the same positions like Donald Trump in politics. And so that was the astonishing move, that they didn't just make this analysis, but took action then. Because we have made that experience very often in the past that government parties do not tend to maintain relationships with us as we are an opposition party. And above all, we are an opposition party that is sidelined and discriminated. It has a bad reputation, created, of course, constructed by the media. And for example, Viktor Orban, he would never invite officially an AfD delegation to Budapest and meet with us, because the German government tells him, and also German industrial investors, which are very, very important for the national economy of Hungary, they would always tell him, should you do that, we will just drop you. We will punish you. And Hungary will suffer. And now, in this case, in the United States, the most powerful government on earth, got into direct touch with the official representatives of my opposition party here in Germany. And this is something revolutionary for us because it has helped us to get out of this isolation. Now, they are demonizing Elon Musk, just as they have been doing before with Alternative for Germany. That's their last resort, I would say, their attempt to break this immense effect that this X talk had of taking the AfD out of isolation. But I mean, people do not believe everything. They know that Elon Musk is one of the leading and most innovative figures in the industrial history of the last 10 or 20 years. So they start now thinking that by themselves, on their own. And this was the great and very, very interesting and very important effect for us. And now we try to take this dynamics into this election campaign. And another very important development that is going on at the moment in Austria also helps us a lot. They were standing just before the same fate as Germany, of getting some sort of traffic light coalition. They gather all the parties they need to have a majority just to keep Alternative for Germany out of government. And the same was about to happen in Austria. But then this artificial construct fell apart, and the AfD counterpart, FPÖ,
The Freedom Party.
led by Herbert Kickl, was called to form a government. And now Germans can watch in real time in neighboring Austria how you can form a government with a right-wing extremist party doing just sensible politics, standing just for common sense political positions.
Yeah. Now, just by breaking AfD's isolation, have you noticed an increase in your support amongst German people?
Not that strongly, but the survey results tend to go up. Of course, not with a recognizable leap, but they keep going up towards the 23rd of February. This is our federal election date. And what we have recognized is that the enemies of the Alternative for Germany, the Antifa people, the people calling themselves the anti-fascists, applying fascist methods in fighting the Alternative for Germany, they even got more aggressive to fight us. So it's not like, oh, Elon Musk has talked to Alice Weidel on X and now we love you, Alternative for Germany. It's rather mid or long-term thinking process that has been started, I think, and it also has provoked outright resistance on behalf of our militant enemies. When you look at our party congregation we held in Riesa in Saxony on the 11th and 12th of January, you could recognize that the resistance against our party congregation was a lot more aggressive, and demonstrators were in numbers, were many, many more than the years before. So it also has provoked a lot of resistance.
Okay, and then what about support from German industrialists? Because from my read, Germany, like the UK, is doing really, really badly. Really, really badly. Germany, sanctioned itself from cheap Russian gas, cut off its nuclear power stations. Volkswagen is going to be laying off thousands of workers from its factories. And then there isn't just the losses of those jobs, but all the ancillary employment. Mm-hmm. And my understanding is there has been some dissent amongst the German industrialists who want to do business with Russia, who want cheap energy, because how is Germany going to compete? Germany's made its money from really high quality, high-end manufacturing goods that they can use the euro to sell at a discount to other poorer nations. But how are you going to compete without cheap energy?
Yeah.
So what have the industrialists been saying?
That's the problem. But the industrialists, to be honest, they were not. They were voiceless, I would say, in this phase of 3 years of total industrial decline, where the decisions, were taken totally in opposition to their own interests. And that was really weird for us, because we would have thought that those suffering the most under this greenish socialist style politics would also be our friends. And this was not the case. What we see now instead is that coming from the United States, there is a turnaround. And that may also then help the German industrialists to become a little more self-confident and speak out for themselves. Because when you see that BlackRock, for example, deserts the climate and woke agenda in the United States, if you see that not only Elon Musk, but also Mark Zuckerberg leaves the censorship train, then this is quite a huge signal. And so I hope that also the industrialists in Germany will stand up now. They have started to form a campaign against the traffic light coalition, the remaining Social Democratic, SPD, and the Greens. But to me, it still seems they just want to give support to Friedrich Merz, the former head of BlackRock Germany. And this is, of course, not a solution for the energy problem, because it was the very CDU which had promoted leaving nuclear power, which had promoted the end of the combustion engine, and which had promoted also the breaking up of relationships with Russia. Angela Merkel kept it at a reasonable level, but in the European Parliament, Manfred Weber, for example, he advocated since many years for stopping the Nord Stream pipeline project. And so I think the German industrialists, they are still mistaken if they believe that Friedrich Merz and CDU could improve the situation in any way. Because we are stuck. We are really stuck as Germany at the moment, because we have hit the end of this dead end road of cutting ties with Russia. For other nations like UK, it may not be that important, but we are depending on Russian gas very heavily. And we depend on being able to lower our energy prices. Otherwise, industry will desert Germany little by little towards east, Hungary, China, towards west, United States, and we will have an economic blackout in Europe because Germany funds the European Union.
Yes, yes. Now, the position of the AfD is to leave the European Union, is that correct?
That's our position because we have learned that the EU wants to stay on the same track no matter what happens. I thought after Brexit that the EU then would get into a reform process, looking more after the demands of the nation states, of the member states, and giving more freedom to countries who demand for that freedom because of their democratic decision-taking process in their own parliaments, in their own populations. But nothing in that way happened. They just kept going forward towards a more centralized and also authoritarian system. And this is something we cannot support in the future. We stand for the diversity of the peoples in Europe, but the diversity just makes sense if the peoples can also take diverse decisions for themselves. Otherwise, it's a forced unification. It's then a Soviet-style centralization that will not really respect democratic decision-taking procedures.
Yeah, well, it can't, because why should Ursula von der Leyen? Because she never has to answer to the electorate, ever.
Yeah.
Okay.
The main question, if you ask whether we want to leave the European Union, is, and what would be next? Next would be to form a new sort of alliance. And in that new sort of alliance, I'm pretty sure that Germany and UK could also become partners again, close partners again. We need to cooperate on the European level, for sure. We need the common market. We also need open borders for people and for commerce. But we need to set limits to what is being organized and determined centrally. We need to leave more freedom to the nation states in regulating their own issues. We cannot accept, for example, that Brussels decides that Germany has to obey to sanctions against Russia. If it's totally against our interest, who has authorized democratically Brussels to take these decisions? This is not correct. This is not fair. And in my view, when we talk about the future constellation of a European cooperation process, we should take into consideration also what is going on globally. And globally, we have the BRICS association, which becomes more and more influential. And we have been forced by the Biden administration and also the globalist predecessors of Biden to stay in the Western camp and not to open up ourselves too much towards the BRICS players and the global South, now also leaning more towards BRICS than towards the West. And this is a problem. We have to accept that there is a resetting of global power structures going on since many years, visible now with the growing BRICS association. And we, as the Europeans, would be very well advised to open up ourselves towards that multipolar setting that is displayed at the moment globally only by BRICS, by nobody else.
Yes.
And I think we have the chance now to go forward in this direction because, as far as I understand Donald Trump, he doesn't want to keep up the role of the United States, of the world's policeman, because the costs are too high and the United States just doesn't have the power any longer, the financial, the productive power, the military power to keep the growing competing forces globally under control. So he understands this shift and wants to retreat from this global policeman position and wants to strengthen his own nation, his own national economy. And that is a good strategy to make the United States also more resilient when the dollar possibly is going to lose its position as the one and only trade currency in the world. Mm. And so Donald Trump makes the United States great again, but also fit for sitting at the table in a multipolar setting in the restructured world that we will see very, very soon.
I think so too. And I just want to add that I agree with you that Donald Trump wants to make America great again and doesn't want America to be the US, the policeman of the world. But there is something else about him, which is his personal antipathy to war. Mm-hmm. I remember there was a clip a couple of years back on CNN where the CNN anchor person was asking him, well, who do you want to win, Ukraine or Russia? And he kept saying, I just want the killing to stop. He didn't say whether Ukrainians, Russians, I want the killing to stop. And he's brought about peace, stop the slaughter in Gaza before he became president. And, let's hope that sustains and peace breaks out all over. You mentioned open borders earlier. And one of the things that I hear about AFD in the UK is that you're racist, you're Islamophobic. Now, I told you I'm Muslim. I wasn't born in the UK. I'm an immigrant here, and that you just hate non-white people, and this is why you're far right, and this is why you're Nazi-like.
Mm-hmm. That's the complete nonsense of the mainstream narrative about Alternative for Germany. And you can easily prove it that it's complete nonsense. Yes, we stand for border controls. Yes, we stand for immigration control. Yes, we stand for remigration concepts. It's about deporting, for example, criminals. Okay. But also fostering voluntary return to countries that have found peace again and that need to be rebuilt. And what is our reality in our party is that if you're an immigrant, if you're a person of color, and you want to engage yourself in Alternative for Germany, you can run as a candidate for parliament and you're even elected. And when you're elected, for example, like Anna Nguyen, she's the daughter of Vietnamese refugees who came to Germany in the 70s. She got elected as the young lady, Vietnamese-looking lady. She got elected as member of parliament in the state of Hessen. And inside the party faction of, if I'm not mistaken, 18 members of parliament of the Alternative for Germany, she was nominated the candidate to be the vice president of the Hessen parliament. And of course, she was not elected because we are the xenophobic party. I mean, this is complete nonsense. As a weapon, and as long as they fear our competition, they will use these weapons, no matter if these are outright lies. They will use it against us. This is the nasty and very, very toxic side of politics, unfortunately. We try not to use it.
Yes. And I do notice that about people like in the UK, Jeremy Corbyn and Viktor Orban in Hungary. They don't resort to the politics of smearing and name calling. They deal with the issues, but it's the established powers in the absence of any ideas. Well, what have you got that's going to make our lives better? That nothing and eat bugs and have regular boosters. Well, no, we're not really excited by that one. Oh, and how many sexes are there? Oh, and anybody can come in unvetted. No. So in the absence of any real ideas that are going to make any difference to people, then all they do is name calling, and it's
Yeah.
like uh, I don't know. Do you understand fractals?
Sorry.
Fractals,
Uh,
fractals, F
yeah,
R
yeah.
A C T. Yeah. So for people who don't know, fractals are patterns that repeat at different scales.
Yeah.
So the Norwegian coast is crinkly when you look at a kilometer, or when you look at 10 kilometers or 100 kilometers, it's always crinkly, right? Human beings, our behavior occurs in fractals.
Mm.
So in the UK, and I think in Germany as well, right? I'm going to tell you what to wear. I'm going to tell you when you can go out. I'm going to tell you who you can meet with. I'm going to tell you how long you can go out for. Don't bother about having an independent income. I'll give you a little bit of money. Oh, and I'll tell you what medications you can have. And I'm doing this for your own good.
Mm.
Now, I deal with that sort of discourse as a child protection social worker with abusive partners.
Mm.
Played out on a larger scale, that was the politics of lockdown, where the government was our abusive partner. And then with the whole thing about open borders and unvetted immigrants as a fractal, oh, anybody can come into my house. Just come in. Just come in. No, no, no. Oh, no, no. Help yourself. What would you? Okay, the pie's got smaller. We'll just have smaller pieces. Oh, no, 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 no. You can come in. I don't need to see your credentials or anything.
Yeah, correct.
Absolutely absurd. It's just a recipe for chaos.
Yeah, it is. It is. And
And
if we want to preserve Europe as it is, we need a U-turn in politics. And of course, many of those immigrants who have come here and have well integrated, like you, obviously, are part of our society. I mean, for me, it's a reality in my own life. When I grew up as a little boy, I had in my little village just one real friend, and that was the only Turkish son of the only Turkish family there. So we were best friends. He was integrated completely into society in Germany, and he upholds German virtues and values in the best way possible.
mm,
Much better
and
than a bio-German, the unword, the most toxic word. It was just decided last week of German language in 2024, bio-German.
bio-German. What's a
German,
bio-German?
yeah. And of course, he's part of our society. He makes our society stronger, more harmonious, resilient, etc. What's the problem? That he is Turkish. But if you lose control over your borders and many, many people come into a country and also concentrate in certain areas of the country, in certain cities, you build parallel societies, you build tensions, you allow criminality also to disseminate everywhere in your country. And it is a recipe, as you said, for chaos. It's a recipe also for authoritarian control. It calls for authoritarian control. And that's sometimes the real reason that I suspect behind these developments. They want to create chaos to make everybody understand, yes, we need authoritarian control in every corner of the country. Video surveillance, artificial intelligence to look after what you comment on social media, etc. And they have developed that artificial intelligence, and they have already applied it during the COVID crisis. The social listening, AI, was applied officially to monitor the social media networks in, if I'm not mistaken, 11 different languages to see whether people criticized, for example, vaccines or COVID measures taken by the government. And then they could delete easily or take off channels just to keep in control of the narrative. And in the pandemic treaty draft of the WHO, which the United States just left under Donald Trump, had called for even a more stringent and aggressive fight against disinformation. They called it like the disease itself. It's for them, it's a disease that unwanted information is being spread. And this is terrible. I mean, this is a recipe for authoritarian control of one's free citizens.
Yes.
And our ancestors had fought for that freedom over decades, over centuries. Enlightenment as a fundament for our free democratic European societies is being smashed at the moment, and the media propaganda just paints it as progress, and people accept it. That's really terrifying.
Yeah, and I think there'll come a point where like, no, enough, no more. And when people see what's happening in the United States, the cultural shift, the political shift, and as capital continues to flee the European Union and Germany and the UK for the US, where it will be treated much, much better.
Mm.
And then the UK and the European Union continue in their debt spiral, and interest rates, Ursula von der Leyen can't stop the market from raising interest rates, and the debt repayments become too high. And then the WEF and the European Union can't borrow at low cost for their net zero boondoggles that produce no return in terms of energy or investment. Well, then people are like, no, 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 no.
Yeah, and make no mistake about it, the European Union, and not even the City of London, is the financial center of the world financial markets. It's still the US. You may correct me, but I think this is a factor that Ursula von der Leyen has not on her screen. Because should they go further in hitting out against the United States, against Donald Trump and his government team, threatening, for example, the full censorship of X, they will hit a strong resistance, and it can cost the complete economic development, wealth of the European Union, should they try to fight the US in their will to implement further and further their globalist agenda. J.D. Vance has already said, should you Europeans ban X from the EU, then we question NATO, because NATO was created to defend countries sharing similar values, and our basic value is democracy. And the fundament of democracy is free speech. So if you kill X, we will kill NATO. And the same could happen then in the realm of finance. I mean, we saw already that BlackRock tends to lean towards Donald Trump in the second term now. And that means that they can unleash hell against the European Union, against the European industry, against European markets. It's going to be a bumpy ride for Ursula von der Leyen.
It's going to be a bumpy ride for us all, Rainer. It's been bumpy already.
Right.
But one of the things I see, it's like when lockdown started, I was stressed, I was panicked, I was anxious, I wasn't going to have those injections, and I was seeing what was happening in Germany and other parts of Europe and stuff, and it seemed like they had such a tight hold on everything. And then that started loosening, and it started falling away, and it does seem like the forces of decentralization are going to prevail. I mean, because how do you stop decentralization? One of the things I say is like, when I try and create cryptocurrencies for people, imagine trying to stop Bitcoin is a bit like trying to stop ants' nests. You can't do it. They're all over the bloody world apart from Antarctica, right? You try and kill off ants, it's not possible. And that's the challenge for any centralized entity, to kill off the forces of decentralization. It just can't. People just go underground. Okay, Rainer, any last words you want to say before we finish up?
Well, I think we really live in very, very interesting times.
Far too interesting, Rainer.
Yes, and I'm optimistic.
Yes.
And I'm optimistic really because Donald Trump has won those elections in the United States, because the mainstream media war against him was fought in the most intensive possible way. And the Americans were bold enough to make up their own minds and to take their own decisions. And Trump has developed a totally new dynamics now that will also hit Germany. that will also hit the UK. It will hit the European Union. And either you align to that movement and you use that new energy in a positive way, or things will fall apart. But it will not work out any longer to maintain a system just through media propaganda, outright lies, etc. People are fed up with it. And so I think we are heading towards a better future where we will find peace with Russia. And I also see the same effect in the Middle East that you mentioned before. Arab diplomats really were thrilled with the speed of light with which Trump had his influence already before taking office. The hostage deal and ceasefire was a huge development compared to the 14 months before, 15 months before. And so I hope that no major new conflicts will arise now, but we will head towards, the settling of conflicts. Also with China and Taiwan. I'm very glad that no war was started before Trump taking over office in Taiwan, between China and Taiwan. So I think we are heading towards a brighter future, but we also have to get active, engaged in politics. We need to understand that each of our societies belongs to us. And if we remain passive, the risk increases that things will get out of control again sometime sooner or later. So we need to become active citizens, steering a positive development of our societies.
Yeah, get involved, get engaged, get informed.
No matter how, also by doing wonderful media work as you're doing, breaking the narrative and the demonic power of the mainstream media. Yeah, it's really demonic. We need truth, because truth is the only fundament for a better world.
Absolutely right. And I would just add, it isn't just Trump. There's the Austria Freedom Party, there's Orban's movement, there's the collapse in support for Keir Starmer in the UK. It's all heartening. So Rainer, thank you so much. I'll have the links to IFD in the description below, and also your X. And anybody, please share this video far and wide, because by sharing this and spreading this, we get to inform others of counter narratives to the one that the globalists would have us ingest. Rainer, thank you.
Thank you so much for that wonderful conversation, Rich.
All the best. Thank you. All the best. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. God bless you.